Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Garcia. How are you?
Oh, we're fine, thank you.
I see that you have a photo in your hand, Mrs. Garcia. Can you tell me about that photo and what's happening?
Yes, this is when my husband and I met,
Mhm.
and we went to a wedding. It was a very nice meeting.
Yeah. Whose wedding was it?
A friend of ours
Hmm.
over there in Mexico.
Okay, in Mexico. Mr. Garcia, do you remember that wedding or do you remember that photo?
Oh.
Este.
Oh, now, you see, I had a different photo in my hand. Well, what she said, that I met her
Uh-huh.
when I was a young fellow,
Oh, okay.
because now you can see me with beard,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not representative of that. I
So
have
you
never,
look different now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a beard now. In that photo, you don't have that beard, right?
I have never had it before.
Yeah, it looks good. I like it.
Thank you.
Yes. And so I noticed you were holding a photo too, Mr. Garcia. What's in that photo? Can you tell me about that photo?
Yes, this is when Carmen, my wife,
Mm-hmm.
was expecting the first baby.
Oh.
Eh?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
of course, this is the photo. Do you see it?
yes, and it was so nice because we went to a party and we were dancing and we had a good time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, we were very happy to have our first baby.
Uh-huh. I can only imagine expecting your first child. That must have been such a joyful moment, such a joyful time in your life.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it
Mhm.
was.
We didn't even know what was going to be the sex because we
Uh-huh.
didn't.
So
And
were you wanting a boy? Were you wanting a girl?
what I always said is that I want anything but as healthy
Mm-hmm.
that, that
That's
they are
right.
healthy. That's the
Right.
main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that baby, we're born in El Paso, Texas.
In El
And
Paso.
yes, and all our children were born over here in El Paso, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they are U.S. citizens by
Mm-hmm.
birth.
Right. And so did you have other children after this first child?
Yes, we had 3 more children of our own. So
Mm-hmm.
in total, 4 children,
Mm.
2 boys and 2 girls. And the first one was a boy, the second one, a girl, the third one, a boy, and
Mm-hmm.
the last one, the fourth one, a girl. So we were so
Wow.
lucky, meaning the man is a little older,
Mm-hmm.
and the chief or head of the family.
Okay. Yeah. So what was it like raising your family together, raising your 4 children?
Well, at the very beginning, we were living in Mexico, and
Mm-hmm.
we were there for about 5 years after we got married, and then we came to the U.S. And so the children will start in school here in El Paso. So, but that time we used to always talk to them in Spanish, and
Mm-hmm.
then later on, since they were starting school here in El Paso, they started to learn English, and by now they are bilingual.
Mm-hmm. So you all moved as a family when they were little, when the children were little, like 5 years old or?
Yes, my oldest was 5 years old, and
Okay.
my second one was about three, something like that.
Mm. And so what part of Mexico were you living?
Just across the border in Ciudad Juarez.
Okay, in Juarez.
Uh-huh.
And what was life like in Juarez?
Well, it's quite quite different than here, because in those days, well, everybody, all our family
Mhm.
and our friends were there. So at the very beginning, it was hard for me because I miss them
Mhm.
most of all.
Mm.
And it's always the family for us was the first priority.
Mhm. Right. But now you've made a life, you've created a life in El Paso, it sounds like.
Yes, of course.
Mhm.
Yes, but I'm very happy because now, since I was born in Mexico, now I'm a U.S. citizen and I'm very happy, and I
Mhm.
could vote and I could, I felt like this is my second country, but
Mm.
I
Mm.
love the one.
That's so, what a proud statement to say that you're proud of being an American citizen, you're proud of being and
Yes,
living here in this country.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, and also the obligation at the same time. How do you say? El privilegio of of voting
Oh,
and
the privilege. The
the privilege.
privilege of voting.
Yes.
That's right. And speaking of voting, um, we're kind of in our early voting season right now. Have y'all voted yet, or do you have a plan to
Yes.
vote?
Yes. Since we are
Yeah, both of us voted early
through the mail,
Through the mail.
Yes. Yes.
to avoid long lines on the election day because of our age.
Right. Thank
He's
goodness that that's
he's
available.
93. He's 93. And
Mhm.
almost 86.
93 and 86.
Yes.
Wow,
But
that's amazing.
when she was talking about the children attending school here,
Mhm.
I want to emphasize the fact that they learned and they knew more English and could understand the things right away.
Really.
There was no problem.
Mhm.
So actually, uh, we had a neighbor, and those neighbors used to play with them. And when they met, I mean,
They were very good friends.
they didn't know English. You see,
Mm.
they were neighbors.
Mhm.
But then right after that one, oh, you couldn't tell if they were foreigners or what. And as a
Mhm.
matter of fact, their parents were surprised and say, we didn't know that they were foreigners,
Mm.
because they've been acting and attending school just like anyone. Hmm?
Mhm.
So this is to emphasize that when you're a child, you learn your mind is alert and you can learn right away.
Mhm. You're right, and your children adapted, and they learned
Yeah.
the language, and they
Oh,
picked.
that's right. I forgot to tell you. We
Mhm.
adopted two children because of my brother and his wife passed away. And so
Okay.
so I had to move them from Mexico
From Mexico.
to El Paso,
Mhm.
and it was hard for them. For the little girl, it was a girl and a boy, but the
Mhm.
boy learned in English in TV, just looking at TV. But
Yeah.
the girl didn't know a word, so I have to translate every word that
Wow.
in the book, in his lessons and everything for a long time. Mhm.
So you
But now they are
translated.
bilingual. They are bilingual now.
Yeah. So you actually, as a family, y'all adopted two more children, and they had to learn English as they went. But you're saying that you helped to translate and you helped them learn English as well.
Yes.
Wow.
And it was hard at the very beginning because for me, I learned my English in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
When she
go to
said
school.
Mexico, is Juarez,
It's
okay?
Juarez.
Right across.
You
Just not.
understand that.
So,
And
yeah.
when I came here, I knew how to read, how to look at the movies and understand everything, but I couldn't talk. You know, I, I couldn't express myself. But
Mm-hmm.
finally, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's why my accent.
Uh-huh.
I never went to school here in the U.S. Never.
You never went to school in the US.
No,
No. All your schooling was in Juarez.
in Juarez.
In
Yes.
Juarez. Wow. And what about you, Mr. Garcia? Where did you do your schooling? Was it in Juarez or was it also in El Paso or a mix?
Let me begin by saying that since I was born here, I was always an American citizen. But
Mhm.
because of my father's business was in Juarez, we were living in Juarez, and I attended elementary school, secondary school, and preparatory school in Mexico, and also 3 years at the University of Mexico in Mexico City. But then I was drafted while I was in Mexico City,
Mhm.
and I had to leave the University of Mexico and came to serve in the U.S. Army,
Mm.
okay, for 2 years.
Mhm.
So that's the one of the main features, or
Yeah.
for people that don't know why. Well, that's the story. And now you might ask, how do you get from where do you get? In my case, this might be a suggestion. I don't know, but from where do you get your last name? People
Mhm.
might ask.
Mhm.
Okay, so I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you want to elaborate on this or just leave it as it is.
That's interesting. Yes. So you were in the army and what about and then you went to school in Mexico City. Did you complete your studies in Mexico City? And I'm curious to know what was your career?
Oh, I mean, when I was in preparatory school,
Mhm.
I made the biological sciences pre-med,
Oh,
because
wow.
I was going to study medicine. And
Mhm.
also at the same time, I got physical chemistry, you know.
Mhm.
And when I was in those years, that was the beginning of the social security in Mexico.
Mm.
And one of the professors told us, if you can change from medicine to another career, such as biochemistry and things connected with the other one, I would recommend the youth you do that, because
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of doctors or
Mm.
whatever, and that was one of the reasons. But nevertheless, I went to Mexico City, and when I was there, as I said, then I had to leave Mexico and come back to El Paso, and I did.
But
Wow.
I'm I'm so proud of him because
Mm.
he started going to the university in Austin and he graduated as a chemical engineer, which I'm very,
Wow.
my
Well,
husband.
yeah, but this was after, that was when I went there. I was at the University of Texas in
Mhm.
Austin from
Mhm.
1951 or 53.
Well,
No. That was 53 when I got out of the army. Okay,
Okay.
53.
Wow. And it's so nice to hear you, Mrs. Garcia, express how proud you are of your husband
yes.
for completing that degree and going to school at UT. That's amazing.
Another thing that because of the GI, um,
Oh, the GI Bill of Rights, the
yes,
benefits. As a
Uh-huh.
veteran, they paid some of my school.
Oh,
And
okay.
the requirement was that I had to take at least 15 semester hours to get full pay.
Mm.
Otherwise, they would reduce it. So at all times, I had at least 15 hours,
Mm.
in order to get full pay. Full
Right.
pay.
That's amazing. I've loved hearing both of your stories about where you came from and your family and your relationship. And I want to ask one last question to wrap up, and we'll give you each a minute or two to answer. But what is one thing that you are so happy and proud of?
Well, let me tell you, to being together with my family, to see my grandchildren, and to see my son and my sons and daughters together, and having a meal together. That's a very nice moment for me. I always appreciate the Thanksgiving Day because that's one of the holidays that I really think are very nice from the US that we don't have in Mexico.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And what about you, Mr. Garcia? What's something that you're proud of that makes you happy?
Well, as I said before, I mean, being surrounded by family members, even I didn't have much of a family here. It was it was not as large family as Carmen's as Miss Nana Maria Garcia. But anyhow, we grew up together, and fortunately we made it, and we feel very satisfied that after all we accomplished part of the life. It's still, I would say that I still have a lot of things to accomplish at 93 years of age. Yeah, because and I have a mess and of boxes full of papers, and Nana Maria Garcia is pushing me. Finish.
Well,
You both, you both have accomplished so much, and you've made it. You've become successful, and even at your age, there are still things that you want to do and accomplish. And what a beautiful story! What a beautiful life you both lived.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I'll see you next week for our second session. Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.